Alison, what exactly do you do? What's your title and what's your area of focus?
Great. I'm Alison Gill. I'm Vice President for Legal and Policy at American Atheists. And I really focus on overseeing our litigation work across the country, as well as our advocacy at both the federal and state level on issues related to separation of religion and government and religious equality.
Alison, how bad is it? Like, you're a legal person. Every day when I log on to Twitter and I see hashtag Supreme Court, right? Hashtag, I don't know, pick a state, a conservative red state, Florida, etc. My heart just sinks. Is that appropriate? Should I be feeling this level of I mean, I'm not trying to be a downer right off the bat, but how bad is it?
There are some pretty bad aspects, but that doesn't mean that everything is hopeless, I would say. So the courts are a real problem. They've been stacked in some pretty bad ideological ways. And there are many states where there are bills proceeding that are very dangerous and destructive, including Florida. However, in other states, we're seeing positive changes. So it's hard to brush them all one way. However, some of the states like Texas are just really bad right now. So I think I'm giving a mixed perspective.
We see the zeitgeist changing, though, the rise of the religious nuns. So what you have is a foundational change in the culture. And then this scrambling of the theocrats, right? They probably see the writing on the wall. Do you interpret that the same way? Like, one of the reasons that they're going after school boards, local, state, federal courts, Supreme Court is that they feel like maybe they're losing at the ground floor? Would that be accurate? No?
I do think that's accurate. Yeah, I often say that most of their policy change efforts are focused on children and youth. Like, they, for example, are trying to get "In God We Trust" posters into every school, trying to get Bible classes into schools, really allow for more school prayer. So really focused on areas where they can try to sort of stop this demographic slide of people more and more are non-religious. But I don't think that's possible, but they sure are making an effort. And I would pair that with efforts to undermine democracy itself. Unfortunately, that's what we're really seeing from the Christian Nationalists at the moment, trying to grasp onto power and hold it even though they are losing the political majority.
A friend of mine, constitutional attorney Andrew Seidel, has a great, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, "The minute America becomes a Christian nation, it will cease to be America." Would you hold to that?
I would. I mean, America was not founded as a Christian nation, contrary to what the Christian Nationalists believe. It was founded as a pluralistic democracy, and that's what we are and continue to be, despite what they want. Now, the question is, will we be able to keep it that way? I do think we will, but it's going to be a big fight. It's going to be a hard fight, and we're going to have to keep challenging these breaches of both civil rights and church-state separation.
In our lifetime, do you think, maybe? I mean, are you optimistic at all?
I am optimistic. I hold to the idea that one, in order to make change and be successful as an advocate, one has to have hope. Because otherwise, how do you convince other people to sort of take this seriously and fight? You have to have hope, and I do have hope. Demographically, in the long run, we're winning. There's fewer and fewer people identifying with these religions, and the more hateful and controlling they become, the more quickly people will flee from them, and that is exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, we're seeing that in the church. They're freaking out as all of the 30-something and unders just don't need it, right? They're walking away, so they're preaching sermons and writing books about how do we get people back. But these people, this entire generation, perhaps even 2 generations of people, aren't interested in the fundamentalism of fundamentalist Christianity, the bigotry, the discrimination, the hardcore stuff. Even if they practice Christianity, it's becoming more of kind of a, I don't know, a softened, soft focus religion, right?
Like a cultural sort of thing, kind of like Judaism is in a lot of places, right? As opposed to, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, they're making their religion about hate. I mean, maybe it always was to a large extent, but they've always tried to brand it as Christianity is about love. But it's more clear to everybody that it's actually about hate.
But I mean, I'm hugely frustrated, as I'm sure you are. Even the moderates, the people who aren't running around waving the Confederate flag inside the Capitol after smashing through the windows. Even the people who aren't doing this, I've seen the banners and the t-shirts, "Jesus is my God, Trump is my president" type people. Even the more moderate people who have a bad taste in their mouth, right, they're awfully quiet. Like, where the hell are you?
Yeah.
Are you seeing that?
I am, and that's the scariest part of it, is that there's no backbone to stand up to some of this ridiculous Trumpism and Christian nationalism, and it really is proceeding hand in hand. I mean, January 6th was a terrifying day, frankly, and if we continue to see that, and I think we might around the country, we need to stand up and push back against it. Now, there was a backlash. Many people were prosecuted around January 6th, but there has not been repercussions for the leaders of it, and I think that's key. I think that really is. So the question is, will we have the courage to sort of stand up and push back and encourage lawmakers on the other side to do the same? I hope we will.
At this moment, as we're speaking, you're involved in key legal fights for state-church separation against the overreach of the theocrats. Can you give me any specific examples of things that are happening now that we might want to know about?
There's almost too many to give you. I'm sitting in Florida, so I'll talk about that currently. There's 3 bills that are very close to passage in Florida that we're very concerned about. One is a 15-week abortion ban that just passed the House and the Senate. It's going to the governor. And this is sort of taking a page from the Mississippi, right? So they have a 15-week abortion law in Mississippi, and that's currently being challenged before the Supreme Court. So now you see the role of the court plays, because this bill in Florida will live or die depending on what the court does. And so that's one example. The other bill is a denial of care religious refusal bill. But basically it allows providers, hospitals, or even payers, which means insurance companies and businesses, to refuse to provide care based on their religious beliefs, ethics, or morals. So it's so much broader than what we've seen previously. And we've seen a few of these all across the country now.
Are bills like they call it the Don't Say Gay bill, right, going on? Is that all religious?
It absolutely is religious, yes.
It's a religious thing? I mean, it's not that, oh, this is about the children or this is about the law, but the people pushing this are the Christian Nationalists.
They definitely are. And it's really, they don't call it the Don't Say Gay bill. That's sort of our label. They call it around parental rights. So they actually passed a bill last year in Florida that was about parental rights. Now they're hoping to expand it through this bill. And that, if you look at last year's bill, was all about religious exemptions to taking place in classes, to getting to view things and object to them, like curriculum, to being exempt from vaccination and mask mandates. So yes, it was all about religious exemptions. So you can see the underlying issue. They're just sort of broadening it out. And now there's this myth that the schools somehow make kids gay or trans, and that's what they're sort of fighting against. It's definitely religiously driven.
What's that, it's a meme or a poster that says, because of course, heterosexual parents never give birth to non-heterosexual children, right? So if they make everybody hetero, well, that will apparently solve the quote-unquote problem. It's, it's bigotry and fear, and it's totally tragic in the sense that it's rooted in the notions of superstitious primitives. I mean, it's just bizarre that they are essentially leaning into Old Testament verses. Meanwhile, I don't think Jesus ever said anything about non-heterosexual people. I mean, unless there's a verse I missed, right?
Not to my knowledge, no.
What about the Supreme Court? You watching? We got a new nomination going on. Of course, the word faith has already been invoked, which is a bit terrifying. But it's not as terrifying as Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, etc. Your take on the Supreme Court? What are you thinking?
Well, we're excited to watch the nomination process. We've been looking into the background of this candidate, and she seems terrific. There's not a ton of information on her regarding church-state issues, so there's not a lot to sort of go on. But based on her record, she seems like a very qualified candidate. And, we need more of that in the court. However, the court currently is 6-3 in terms of conservative versus liberal. I mean, once this judge is appointed, it'd be 6-3 conservative and liberals, and that's really bad. Like, it's challenging to have any victories that are sustainable or that change the law in our favor with that kind of stacking against it. And this court is just so willing to use that majority to ram through changes in the law.
Now, whenever I see the Supreme Court, I'm like, is there any justice that is not linked in some way to an Abrahamic religion, right? I mean, this is not a representative court.
It's certainly not.
It's not a representative court in a representative republic. It's terrifying. Mm-hmm. What's the solution then if we see sort of an activist court underway? Do you create more seats?
You absolutely create more seats. That's really it's essential that we create more seats. It's the only way that's going to get us out of the court problems we have currently in a realistic way.
Well, if I can jump in though, how's that even done? How do you expand the Supreme Court?
Sure. Well, this number of justices on the Supreme Court is established by Congress. So they just have to pass a bill, and it has to be signed by the president, and they can change the number to whatever they want. However, there are currently 13 what are called circuit courts, which are courts below above the district courts and below the Supreme Court, so middle-level courts. And each justice is linked to one of them. So what they could do is create 13 seats, one linked to each court, and that would be a good solution. It's not just about the Supreme Court, though. We need more justices at every level of our federal courts. They are overburdened. They have not added new judges in decades, and we need more at every level, especially in places like Texas, where just having one judge in a district allows them to push through and get favorable rulings through what's called forum shopping.
Well, we also see organizations like Project Blitz and the like, and they are specifically strategically going after school boards. So they're really starting at the ground floor.
That's exactly right, yes.
And that's not just Texas, right?
Project Blitz is all across the country. It's an effort to sort of flood state legislatures with different types of legislation that is anti-church state separation, religious equality, and also anti-LGBTQ rights.
You know, it's funny, some people ask why, as someone who hosts the Thinking Atheist website, that we speak about these humanist issues. I consider them human rights or humanist issues, including LGBT rights and speaking out against racism and systemic oppression, which I think we have to acknowledge. And I'm reminded of that quote by Dale McGowan. He said, for him, atheism was the first step. Humanism was the 1,000 steps that followed.
Interesting.
And I found that, you know, there's great utility in seeing it that way. I mean, one of the reasons that you're a representative of American Atheists, but you are actively engaged in legal fights to protect human rights, humanism. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think as atheists, we care about things like the separation of religion and government, and we have to care about the growing Christian nationalism that we're seeing all across the country. So if we care about atheist issues, and we care about our own freedom from religious coercion, then we have to recognize and fight these issues at every level, not just, I like to say that church-state separation does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in the context of people's lives, and so that's where we have to fight it.
So don't surrender, right? Don't give them carte blanche to say whatever they say and do whatever they do unchallenged, no matter how discouraged we become, right? Because you and I feel that. What are we going to do? Quit? What are we going to give the game up to them? No, I think we continue to kick and scream and fight and battle for the things that matter.
I agree. And in the long run, we're winning. The demographic change is changing. There are more and more non-religious people, and it's a matter of making sure democracy lasts that long.
How do people participate? So let's say they've watched this conversation and thought, great, now what?
Wonderful. Well,
what do they do?
They can sign up for, one simple way, sign up for action alerts on the American Atheist website. We'll let you know when there are negative bills in your area and how you can most effectively fight them. Get engaged with local groups. Your voice is more powerful when you stand with other non-religious people, so get engaged. And reach out to your lawmaker when you have complaints or want to talk about these issues. They represent you. They should listen to you.
Alison, I'm glad you're on our team. I'm just saying. I appreciate you talking to me.
Thanks so much.